Hey guys, it's me, Wolf, back with, once again, not another Stronghold Crusader builds video. I'm working on one at the moment, but it still takes a little more time, and I'll hopefully finish it soon, but enough with the excuses. Today I have a rather short video for you on how I've attempted to make my otherwise bare, bland white walls in my room look a little less bare and bland, and it stays white, but you get what I mean. In other words, I'm decorating my room because a lot of the rings map above my bed will definitely get me more action. I'm sure of it. And because simply hanging up a poster would be way too easy, I got this 1000 pieces puzzle set that I'm trying to assemble, frame and later hang onto the wall. First things first, I gotta put the puzzle together. Inside the box is a little map on what the finished puzzle is supposed to look like, and if you are a little familiar with the books or the movies, you're probably recognizing places like Mordor, Rohan, the Shire where the hobbits are from, maybe even Gondor in the middle here, and Magic. Oh, would you look at that? The puzzle has magically assembled itself. I'm using an 8mm thick plywood sheet as a base to glue the puzzle onto. I simply transferred the size directly onto the sheet and had to hold down the edges because the puzzle pieces are still loose. I wanted to cut out the sheet before gluing because I wasn't entirely sure if the puzzle glue would just glue together the pieces or if it would also glue the pieces onto the base. To cut it I had to remove the puzzle first, and I would not have expected this to work so well, but it did. And after cutting it with a jigsaw, I obviously had to put the puzzle back onto the sheet, which also worked surprisingly well. Wait a second, something's not right here. This is going way too well for my standards, and while I was thinking that, I've realized that I somehow cut the plywood sheet in the wrong size. Luckily I had enough plywood left to cut another one, and now it's time to glue the puzzle together. I'm using this I'm using this jigsaw puzzle glue, and I've never used this before, so maybe I should check out the instructions first. Step 1. Squeeze the bottle, drain the glue and apply the glue to the pad on side of the puzzle. Step 2. Use the pad to spread the glue evenly, make sure the glue fills all puzzle seams completely. Step 3. Wait about 2 to 3 hours until the glue is completely dry. Step 4. All the puzzles are firmly glued together. After washing the bottle, the pieces are glued to... It doesn't matter, I get the point. I came back the next day, and at first I tried if everything is nice and firm, and I'm actually pretty surprised on how good this is holding. My next step was to cut a 2mm sheet of acrylic glass to size, because I thought the puzzle could need an extra layer of protection. You can use a simple cutter knife for this and repeatedly cut around the border. Once you're about halfway through, it is mostly safe to hold it over an edge and break the rest off. I gotta admit, this was a little scary because I only had one of these sheets. Next I cut some wooden sheets with my circular saw to make a border around the puzzle. This border is not only supposed to look good, it also holds the acrylic glass in place and covers up the not so perfectly cut edges of the plywood and the acrylic glass. I used my favorite making wood look old by burning it method, which is burn it, scrub it, clean it.
Fuck it.
I thought this color would go really well with the dark borders of the map, and it generally fits with the theme of an old map. I used 2 wooden strips to create an L shape and glued them together on a straight metal profile with way too much glue. Later I switched to a brush to do a cleaner job. Also, you can never have too many tiny clamps for projects like these. Here I was hoping that the glue doesn't stick to the smooth metal and mostly stick to the wood, and after a day of drying, the wood snapped right off. Wait again. I was speculating about something and it actually worked out. Something has to go wrong now to balance that out. Maybe I'm just a bit too pessimistic. To connect the frame I used my bandsaw and set it to 45 degrees to make a connection like this, because I think on a frame this looks better than this. I was all proud about the clean cut and wanted to show off how good this is looking, and then I realized that I cut the angle completely wrong. What I need was this and not this.
Maybe I'm just a bit too pessimistic.
But haha, I already knew that I'm making some cutting mistakes every time I do something with angles, so I made the wood strips longer in advance, and I was then able to make the correct cuts. Now it was time to glue the border onto the puzzle. I removed the protective layer on the underside of the acrylic glass, and it probably would have been smart to not do this directly on the puzzle itself, but I still have the protective foil on the top side. I used normal wood glue and clamped wooden boards all around the edges to hold the border pieces in place. Once again, you can never have too many clamps. After a day of waiting, I removed the clamps and everything was holding together nicely. Now the puzzle is ready to be hung on the wall, but the hanging mechanism is still missing. I obviously couldn't have just bought a simple wall hanging hook, something like this, or like this maybe. I had to make my own version again, but this shouldn't be too hard. Here is my very accurate depiction of my wall, and my idea is to use one of these aluminum U-rails and cut a keyhole into it. The principle here is very simple. I have a bigger hole where the screw head fits into and a slot where the head doesn't fit through anymore. First I made a template on a piece of paper and transferred it over to the rail. Then I took it over to my drill press to drill one 10mm hole and a 4mm hole. I used a deburring tool to, well, deburr the holes and made sure that the screw head actually fits. I cut it to length with a hacksaw, and to make the slot I used my Dremel tool with one of these really thin cutting discs. And a little tip here, try not to lose the rubber washer that prevents the disc from splitting. After a little filing we have this part ready. I obviously can't hang up the puzzle on only one point, so I made a second one, and I've also added 2 holes on each part to fasten it to the back side. I wanted to create a little more space between the wall and the puzzle, so I'm using another piece of plywood that I spray painted black. I didn't really care to do a good job painting this, because it's on the back side and you won't see it later anyways. Something I can mention as a small side note is that I made sure to make the lower hole only big enough for the screw and the upper hole big enough for the screwdriver. The second to last step is to attach the metal parts onto the backside of the puzzle. And you're maybe asking yourself why I've added this masking tape on the back here. I simply did that because we used this plywood sheet for my mom's birthday party to attach some old embarrassing photos of her on it, and then everybody from my family wrote their names on it. I wasn't expecting that the marker we've used would be visible through the black spray paint. Well, it was, but enough of that. I've added the metal parts with the wooden sheet, and there's only one thing left to do. Hanging it up on these 2 points would make the puzzle tilt forward, so I've added a simple spacer that creates the same distance on the bottom. Okay, we are finally ready to hang this onto the wall. There's nothing too interesting going on here. I picked the first point on the wall and used the measuring tape to make a second point on the same distance from the floor. Then I used the spirit level to check if I measured correctly, and I didn't, so I understood that I can just use the spirit level alone to make an even line to then make a second hole in the right distance. I used the good old electrical tape on the drill bit method again to not drill too deep, then I cleared the holes and hammered in the dowels. I could have probably picked better dowels for the job. They are pretty old and I prefer the ones that have the border around here to not go fully in, but they are good enough and it's not like they are supposed to hold a ton anyways. In go the screws and we are finally ready to hang the good piece up. Well, this video was something a little different again. And honestly, I just wanted to decorate my room and thought, well, can also make a video out of that, so that's what I did. And I don't know, maybe you want to do the same or are interested in how I did it. And yeah, that was it. As always, thanks for watching.